Sometimes you find the most interesting things when you least expect them. And that's exactly what happened to me when I found this. I'm not even sure what it is. It's a plate, obviously a brass plate of some sort. It's got the name of the ship on, HMS Foyle, but it's not the maker's plate. It's not anything that anybody I've consulted has seen before. I actually think what it was something that was handmade, possibly by one of the engineering team on board the ship. Now it's got holes, so it's clearly been mounted, but if you have a look at it, you can see that it's never been finished. Bottom line, it's a bit of a conundrum. If you know what it is, then I'd love to hear about it in the comments. For everyone else, I guess you'd like to know how I found it, where I found it, and what is the foil, or to give it its proper title, His Majesty's Ship Foil. HMS Foyle was a river-class torpedo boat destroyer built at the beginning of the 20th century that then hit a mine in March 1917 just off the Eddystone Lighthouse. The mine blew off the bow, killing 27 sailors who were actually asleep there. The boat didn't sink immediately, or the ship didn't sink immediately, and was being towed back to Plymouth, actually being towed backwards when it then foundered and sank in the location it is now, which is about 5 miles outside Plymouth, and it sits on the seabed in 50 metres of water. It's one of the kind of classic Plymouth beginning technical dives. I've dived it quite a few times. It's been dived loads and loads since it was discovered, probably in the late 60s or early 70s. It's also been commercially salvaged. Large chunks have been brought up and scrapped. You can see an example here. This picture I think was probably taken in the 70s. That's the bridge and one of the guns in a scrapyard in Plymouth. There was a whole load of other stuff as well, including all the torpedo tubes and loads of small brass stuff was just brought up and then sold for scrap. So a bit sad really that those artefacts aren't around anymore, but hey, that's the way the world was. For anyone interested in diving the foil, I can't recommend the Ships Project website enough. The link is in the description and also up on the top of this, and that's where I got loads of the historic information about this, loads of the photos, including this one here which shows the plan of the site. It's a brilliant website. Go and have a look at it. You find it really useful. You can also see I'm doing something a bit different here. I've got a selfie stick, I've got a GoPro mounted on it, and I'm taking a bit of footage of myself, so I thought that might be a bit interesting. I've also got some footage that was taken by my buddy on this dive, Craig Holdstock, and he's very kindly allowed me to use that as well. So, and I've also got another camera with me as well, so you're going to see all sorts of different bits and pieces going on down there, footage from different angles and stuff. Add something slightly different. So anyway, let us know what you think. Tell us in the comments if you like it, if you don't like it, whatever else it is. Always keen to kind of hear what you think. So this is a bit further on in the dive. I haven't got the full dive sequence that I often do, so this one does chop and change a bit. This is arriving at the bottom of the shot line. This video is taken using my Insta360 Ace Pro 2, and you can see there, I mean, that's pretty impressive considering it's 50 meters down in the English Channel, and there is not very much in the way of light. It's going to get a lot better in a moment when I turn the video lights on. And there you go. That's the first of my 2 video lights on. Second one will be on in a second, and that is clearly there it is. Second light is on, and you can see there that has made a huge difference to the quality of the video. So these are a pair of Leighton Power L12 lights that they sent me to kind of have a go with, and I have to say they're very nice. So great combination here of video lights. You can see this is the bottom of the shot line. It's one of the club dives, so we're diving off a rib, use a small grapple. The other thing you can probably see there is there's a shoe just to the right of the grapple. There was a shoe there, so kind of always makes me think about the people who were on these wrecks. But there you go. I'm kind of moving off. You can see there's all sorts of bits and pieces. There's kind of a coil over there. There's some anemones there. And then you can see here within, I don't know what that is, 1.5 meters, maybe 2 meters of the shot line, I see this thing here. And the instant I see it, and I see that curve on the top, and I can see it's clearly brass, I knew that I found something really interesting. And it's a massive surprise because, of course, this is a wreck that has been salvaged and dived probably hundreds, thousands of times. There's a guy, very sadly no longer with us, called Roger Dads, who has done, his claim to fame, well, one of his many claims to fame actually, was that he dived the foil over 100 times, and clearly this plate has not been spotted. So Craig, my buddy, has come over, he's seen it, he's had a look at it as well, and you can see there's a little nut in the corner there. You can see the holes, so this is clearly mounted on something. What I actually think I found is the maker's plate. As you've already heard, it isn't the maker's plate, but it is still something really, really special, and I think nearly unique as well. I've asked several historians if they know what this is, and none of them been able to say. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to you can see I've got my bag out there, and I'm going to put it in my bag, and then I'm going to take it back and secure it to the shot line. That does of course mean that I've stopped videoing, which is why this is a handheld setup, so it's why you're not seeing very much at the moment. So what I'll show you is Craig's view of the same incident. You can see there my two video lights. You can see, there you go, that's me pulling it out and showing it to Craig and going, wow, that's really really significant. I'm videoing it there, Craig's videoing it. This next bit here doesn't make much sense. It kind of, the bag seems to be the wrong way up until you realise the camera is actually inverted. So that's me. I've taken it back over to the shot line. I've put it on the shot line. I've left it there, and I'm going to come back and pick it up when my dive is done, and I'm going to obviously carry it up to the surface. Meanwhile, that's a great start to any dive. You literally within, I don't know what that was, 20 seconds of hitting the bottom, I found that. Obviously, by doing that, I've stirred up the viz a bit. You can see that, but I'm carrying on with the dive. Loads of interesting things here. You've probably seen there's kind of loads of crustaceans, loads of kind of interesting sea life, including pink sea fans, and there was a lobster back there, and various other bits and pieces. Also, a load of rope down here. That's probably from fishing lines or pots. A scallop down there. But there's all sorts of other bits and pieces. That looks quite interesting, that thing there. I try and dig it out, and it turns out to be nothing. So I'm going to save you the pain of quite a lot of bit of video of the seabed. So moved on here, and you can see the viz is not so great there. What you've got to look forward to during this video, there's going to be loads and loads of fish life, but there's also loads of bits of the wreck. So boilers, engines, there's a gun, there's an octopus, there's lobsters, there's pink sea fans, there's a rudder. So loads and loads of stuff to go on. But one of the things I just want to talk about first is taking stuff off wrecks. It comes up quite a lot. Clearly, the foil, people died on it, although not this bit of it. The people who died were on the bow, which is still missing. And is it okay to take stuff off wrecks? Legally, absolutely nothing to stop me doing what I've done, and I've reported the plate to the receiver of wreck, as I'm have to do under the law. And I'll put it out there, if the Royal Navy decide they want the plate from the foil, they are more than welcome to have it. And I would look forward to seeing that in a museum. And obviously, those of you who've watched my Trentonian Bell video will know that is exactly what I did. So I'll kind of wait to hear out on that one. Morally, well, my view is that these ships are decaying and falling into the seabed, and they will be gone within a period of time. And when they go, all these artifacts will go as well, and they will vanish forever. And my view is that it's much better to have them on the surface where people can see them. Something can be done with them, like in a museum or whatever, or even just reported so that people are aware of their existence. And that's why I think it's the right thing to do. But I know it's an emotive subject, and lots of people feel differently. So, as always, I welcome your thoughts. Back to the dive, and you can see that we've just come across. I've come across some of the boiler tubes, and living on here are a whole family of crayfish, which is really nice to see. Crayfish, really interesting. They pretty much vanished from Plymouth and the southwest. From in the 70s when they were horribly overfished, but in the last 5-10 years perhaps, they've kind of reappeared, and as you can see, in incredible numbers. They've come. They must have always been offshore on the deep wrecks where people couldn't fish them, but they've come inshore as well. And you can see here there's a lovely colony of them. Not particularly big ones, these ones, but there are. You do see much bigger ones on some of the kind of further out wrecks. And clearly, I'm spending some time videoing these. You probably saw earlier on I didn't have my video lights well positioned, so I got those Mickey Mouse ears effect. But I've kind of sorted them out now, and moving over to this thing here, which is part of the boiler. The Foyle had a number of Yarrow boilers, which are kind of the V-shaped ones. They're really good in terms of economies of. They gave you a lot of power in not very much space, so they were really popular for kind of these types of vessels. They're kind of very small, relatively fast boats, destroyers, torpedo boats, all those kind of things. And that's where I'm just kind of swimming around. There's not much left of the Foyle. Most of it has been gone. They were very lightly built, so the only really significant bits that are left are the boilers, are the engines, and the stern, which you're going to see in a little bit. So because this wreck is only 50 meters, it's kind of relatively shallow by our standards. I kind of feel that I've got quite a lot of time on it, so I'm taking my time, just going around really slowly and seeing what's here. I also, having had that great find with that plate at the beginning, I'm kind of maybe today has got my luck in. But there's a lobster. It's his lucky day because I don't fancy lobster for dinner, so I'm just leaving him to kind of go about his business unmolested. But you can see it's actually really nice conditions down here, and it is. The Foyle is a kind of really nice dive. One of the interesting things about the Foyle is that the submarine that sunk it, UC-68, was a Type 2 World War II German mine-laying submarine, and the wreck of it has never been found. So it went missing later on in the year, and I'm just going to come back to that in a moment, because you see this thing here in front of me there. There's kind of a whole load of odd stuff. There's some gloves, there's a kind of crayfish or lobster shell, and there's a load of other stuff. There's actually an octopus in there which I don't spot, and the reason I don't spot it is because the octopus is under the gun, and you can see there the gun is running kind of left to kind of upper right, and that's what I'm looking at. That's what I'm videoing, completely neglecting the octopus that is down there, despite the fact you can see it moved the glove there, and you can also see that it's octopus do that thing where they build a little house and they kind of almost like have a little garden outside it. So that's what I was that's what I missed. Right, instead I don't know really what I'm videoing at the moment, but there's all sorts of bits and pieces of kind of engine type stuff around here. So yeah, going back to the UC-68 then. So the UC-68 was missing later on in the year after one of its mines sunk the Foyle. Well, many of you may have seen the videos that I've produced about going and diving a submarine in 85 meters. We dived it twice with the Gasparados. We scrubbed the prop twice. The prop didn't have anything on it, but to our best knowledge, that submarine is the UC-68. So it's there's not that many UCs missing, and it's obviously it's the right shape and design and everything. And the UC-68 we think had the props replaced, so therefore that's why there's nothing on the props. So fairly nice. I like those kind of things where you can see you have those links between wrecks. Obviously what's going on here is you've got a large edible male crab on the top there and female crab underneath him that he's obviously taken care of. And there's a diver. That is my buddy Craig. You can see he dives a very similar configuration to a lot of us, with a G-box and all that kind of stuff. He's a little unusual as well in that he does a load of cave diving, which not many of the other guys that I dive with do, certainly not to the kind of with the enthusiasm and to the extent that Craig does. He's part of the cave diving group. He also does loads of caving and stuff in his dry caving and stuff in his spare time. So he likes to mix it up a bit and get the best of both disciplines. But great to have him on this dive, especially he got that video footage you saw of me earlier on. And what I'm doing here is, you can see this is me just kind of going along the lines of the boiler. So the big tube on the left would have been on top of all these the smaller tubes that were in the middle of the shot earlier on, and that's the Yarrow boilers, and it had four on board the foil. So you can imagine what it must have been like trying to keep those full of coal. And the thing with these torpedo boats is they were notorious for being small and tight, and had a huge number of people on them as well. So they were supposedly they were really uncomfortable ships to kind of live and fight and operate in. But hey, you know, that was, I guess, the way they did things back then. So, you know, more kind of boiler shots. You can see there's loads of fish around as well. So I'm surprised there isn't more fishing gear on the foil, actually, because it is so close to Plymouth, and you'd have thought it would be well fished. But yeah, good news that it isn't. And you can see here I'm slowly moving down the wreck, and I think one of the things that always surprises a lot of people, perhaps not UK divers, but certainly overseas divers, is how degraded many of the wrecks are in the English Channel. And, you know, I often get in the comments questions like, you know, were they depth charged, or, you know, how come it's been pulled apart? Well, the reality is, I mean, this was a very small, slightly built ship. It's over 100 years old, and the storms and the conditions mean that these things get absolutely battered. So what you see in terms of condition then is nothing more than just natural decay. And what you can also see is that it's not going to be too long before this thing is completely gone and has completely vanished into the seabed. And that's going to be really sad. And it's one of the reasons I am always quite keen to recover stuff to the surface, because I think, you know, if you leave it down here, at some point it will go and you will never be found again. You know, there is people bottom trawl in this area. Obviously you can see there's quite a high level of mud, and therefore the things will just go. They will be buried under the seabed. They will be taken off by a trawler, or they'll be moved off by kind of wave action, or, you know, any of those kind of things. So for me, and of course even brass does eventually decay in the seabed. So that's why I'm a fan of bringing stuff up and then, you know, going through the right process. Now what I'm doing here actually is I'm just trying I tried the different modes on the lights out there. I turned them off for a bit, then I went red. Lobster there, you can just see hiding under the plates. His lucky day as well. And you can see, you know, how lovely the quality of this video is. I'm really, really impressed by it, frankly. Those lights are great, and the video camera is great as well. As always with my videos, I've put a link in the description which shows all the kit I'm using. So if you want to kind of have a look at it for yourself, you can do that. So that's what you'll see. Obviously you can see there's been some other divers around, or somebody's been moving stuff because the viz has been kicked up a bit. Craig's over there. I'm not saying it was him, but he is in the vicinity. And there you go, he's just kind of illuminating. That's another bit of the boiler system there. You can see all the tubes and everything. So we've kind of covered this bit a bit, and I think I've probably ended up going round in circles. I didn't mean to. I've been trying to get to the engines and the stern for a bit on this dive, and I've not managed to do it. And one of the problems, I think, with this wreck being so degraded is it is surprisingly difficult to navigate around, even though it is tiny. So I think at this point in the dive, I get a grip of myself and say, right, come on, we're going to go and find those engines. Clearly the boilers have got to point to the engine, so there's four boilers. So at one end of the row of boilers, there has to be an engine. It doesn't appear to be at the end I'm at the moment, so I'm going to try going the other way, and that's kind of what I'm going to do. Now, en route, I go past the gun again. You recall that from earlier on. You remember me saying that I hadn't spotted the octopus, even though I should have done. But this time, I have to say, I have suddenly spotted the octopus. And there you can see it's come out of its house, and it is looking, as octopuses tend to do, looking at me with kind of a bad glare. It's like, what are you doing here? This is my house. Go away. Leave me alone. I've got this lovely garden set up. I don't want a diver sticking big lights and video cameras and everything in my face. And one of the things about Plymouth at the moment is we have had tons and tons of octopuses. I think it must be related to the fact that all the crayfish have come back, because octopus, I think, eat crayfish, but there are loads and loads of them, so we're seeing them on lots of dives, and it's a real problem for the fishermen, because the lobsters get in their crab pots and stuff and they eat all the crab pots. It must be great for a lobster to have a kind of like literally a captive dinner. You can go and you can just go up and help yourself, and fishermen do report that they pull up lines of pots that are just full of shells of crabs and lobsters where they've been eaten by octopus, which must be, when it's actually a livelihood, must be absolutely horrendous. So I think what they've done instead is they've kind of turned the tables, and they've decided that they're going to go octopus fishing instead. So they're now pulling up tons and tons of octopus, and my understanding is the rates for octopus are pretty good, so they're selling loads of octopuses. Maybe not for eating in the UK, but I think certainly Europe they eat a lot, and a load of them have gone over there. So it's kind of worked out okay for the fishermen, maybe not so good for the octopuses. And this we've been here already again as well. So this is the boiler full of the boiler tubes full of crayfish. There's the top of the boiler, but I'm kind of feeling that somewhere around here has got to be the engine, and so I'm heading off in the line, kind of fingers crossed that the engine is going to be up here. It's going to be up here somewhere. And the foil had two engines, obviously, had two screws, twin engined, and that's why it was so powerful. I think the foil did something like 25 knots, but they were also, which wasn't like at the top end of torpedo boats for this era, which I think could kind of, the very fastest ones could do 27 or 30 knots. But the foil or the river class were meant to be particularly good seakeeping boats. So even though they could only do 25 knots, they could do it in far more, far heavier seas than some of the other boats. And here we go. There we go. That definitely looks like an engine there. You can see lying on its side, you can see all the pistons and you can see the shafts and all that kind of stuff. In fact, there we go. There's a pair of engines, one on the left and one on the right, and there you go. That looks like another diver as well. So that's one of the other guys who were diving with us. He's obviously just come down, is having a look around once again, diving a similar configuration to the rest of us with a kind of G box and everything. We're all, I think, probably a bit unimaginative. We all dive a pretty similar configuration. In fact, no, that's not entirely true. Three of us were on AP Inspirations with G boxes. One of the other guys on the boat had a shark, which definitely don't see very, very often. And there you go. You can see the kind of underneath of the engine there. You can see the pistons and the crank and all that kind of stuff. I'm not the world's expert on marine steam engines, but I do recognise that's an engine. I do recognise a few of the bits. So the other thing I wanted to do was go to the stern as well, as kind of I've heard a rumour that there was a gun at the stern, so I've always kind of tried to fancy finding it. So that's obviously the opportunity to do that now. I mean, I don't think there is, but lots of people have told me differently. So now what there is, though, is you can just see just at the bottom there's actually a massive spanner. I think I'm going to turn around and focus on it in a little bit, but in fact, there you go. Look at that massive spanner. So I've no idea the size of what that would have been used for, but it's been on the seabed for 100 odd years, and no doubt at some point was a really important piece of equipment for HMS Foyle, obviously. But nice to see it, and I think one of the problems with anything that's made of iron in particular is that lots of it is unrecognisable. Oh, I'll tell you what else I've just found there. It looks like a bit of a plate. There you go, a bit of broken plate. You wonder, whenever you see something like that, it always makes me wonder about the human link. Who was the last sailor to eat off that plate? And what happened? And possibly, why are they eating in the engine room? Because that would seem to be where this is. But I also think that perhaps the stern of the vessel was where some of the messes were and everything. In fact, I've seen plans of Foyle. I know there are messes at the stern, so that probably explains why it is. There's something else there. Looks like a bit of a box, perhaps. You can see kind of coppery colour. More pink sea fans. And that looks like one of the drive shafts. So that will be coming from the engine and will be going to the stern, to the prop. So obviously the prop isn't on the wreck, because that would have been part of the, one of the really attractive things to salvage, made of bronze. So it would have been worth a lot of money when they, no doubt, when they weighed it in. That thing to the right looks like an arm of the prop. It wasn't. It was just a bit of plate. So anybody who gets excited and starts telling me the prop hasn't been salvaged, that's not the prop. One of the interesting tales of the kind of early days of this is how they identified it. So they found one of the footplates, the brass footplates, when they went down, that had the name of the ship on. These are incredible things. They look absolutely stunning. They're worth quite a lot of money now. And the first person to find it brought it up, and it was weighed in for scrap. It's horrendous. They missed this though. I don't know what this thing that I've just found there is, but it's once again, it's clearly brass. I thought it was a porthole when I found it, but when I turn it over, obviously destroying the vis, you can see it's not. It's some sort of cover to a pipe or something like that. In fact, you might not be able to see it. I might not actually video it, because as soon as I turn it over, I realise it isn't a porthole. It's just a device for destroying visibility. So moving back, and we're quite close to stern here. There, more crabs. You see the stern's actually a bit more upright than the rest of it. And one of the things I saw on this dive that I'd never seen before, and you're going to see it in a second, is actually there's a rudder, which was really kind of quite nice to see, and possibly when I get to it in a second, you'll see why I don't think I'd seen it before, but it's pretty obvious when you see it. There's Craig. He's off, just off the stern, maybe kind of hopefully looking for something over there. And that in front of me there, that is actually the rudder. You can see that curve. It'll become more obvious in a second, because I'm going to take a closer up video, and you can see the steering quadrant up to the left hand side as well. You can see that's how the rudder's mounted. There's the steering quadrant off to the left hand side. Meanwhile, I'm looking at a few other bits and pieces. I've come up a few meters off the seabed, and there you go. There's the top of the steering quadrant, just kind of filling the. Yeah, there you go. That's really obvious now, isn't it? You can see that's a rudder, and I'm going to move around to the side. I'm going to video a bit more of it. There's Craig, who's kind of getting in the way, because that's where I want to go. But he's. Fair play to him. He's a really good buddy. We stuck really close to each other, so that's kind of always nice when you're doing this kind of stuff. But there you go. You can see the rudder going down to the left, and then into the seabed, and probably because so much of it is buried, that's the reason I'd not spotted it before. But you can see there's actually a lobster hiding underneath it, and there you go. That's the rudder. You can see it's actually quite a big thing, and I guess you probably needed that when you were doing 25 knots and you needed to change direction quickly to launch your torpedoes or whatever it was. You needed a high level of control, but that's it there. That's the rudder. You can see the kind of a lower mount, and there may even be a third mount underneath the seabed there. The other thing you can see is off to the right, that's the mount on which the drive shaft would have been, and the prop would have been, I guess, somewhere around there as well, but obviously long gone. I mean, the other thing that would salvage, as I think I mentioned already, with the torpedo tubes that have been, there was one pair in between the funnels, so they would have been above where the Yarrow boilers were, and there was another pair at the back, so probably not too far away from where we are now. Clearly bronze torpedo tubes, really, really valuable, so they would have been pretty much the first things that got lifted by the salvers and weighed in. And once again, how sad is that they were just turned into scrap? Once again, this is probably the 70s, and you kind of feel for them, because the guys who were doing this, they weren't doing it for pocket money. This was kind of their job, really. This was how they stayed financially solvent. If you have a look off, you can probably just see the Strobes off to my right as well. So that's That's where the shot line is, and that's where we're going to come back to in a moment to kind of to finish up the dive. And that's clearly, this is the area where I found, or not too far away from where I found that plate. So it was in the stern of the vessel, you know, probably aft of the engines. There were messes and stuff in around here, so maybe it was something that was put on top of you know, the door to a mess. Maybe it was part of, you know, when you got on the ship for the first time. I don't know. You probably just saw off to the right hand side there that my bag is still there on the shot line, and everybody who came down saw it, and I kind of wondered what was in there. Clearly I gave them the good news when we got to the surface. There's that thing that I tried to dig out earlier on. I thought maybe it was a compass bowl or something like that, but it's not. It's just some sort of brass pipe, and you can see there I wiggle it again, and it's definitely not moving. So time to wrap up and head back to the shot, and you can see this is the bit where I actually found the plate. You can see those a few of the bits and pieces you probably recognise, and maybe even that lobster that's just hidden. So it was obviously off to the right where I'm looking at now, but it's there in the bag on the line next to my strobe, and in fact the big spod weight that they've used to keep the shot down. And there's Craig, and I think we're going to confirm to each other that we are done. There's my strobes. There's the bag, and that's probably that bouncing up and down is what has messed up a lot of the viz, so probably should have got a bit higher. I don't have my normal sheer water overlay on for this dive, just because there's a bit of to and fro with different, you know, there's some cuts and stuff in the video. But what I do have is my Deco profile. I know people like to look at that, so here it is. You can see there, you know, not as much decompression as I often do. So ended up, I think, doing about 40 odd minutes. You can see there the profile. It's just under 50 meters most of the dive. Right at the end there, I get nearly 50, and then sort of come up with with about 45 minutes of Deco. Not sure what's happening here. That's probably the lazy shot. Maybe I'm just kind of sitting there waiting for Craig or something like that. Can't remember for certain. And then obviously all the standard Deco as we come up, and stay a few minutes at the end for the wife and kids. And there we go. Lovely dive. What I do have though is some video. This is from Craig, and you can see there that's me doing my Deco on my DSMB. You can see I've got two different cameras there, the GoPro on the selfie stick. I've got the Ace Pro 2 on a tray with those Leton video lights, and I'm watching my Divoke there during my decompression, and that's what Craig is coming close to see. There's a bit of selfie stick footage of me on Deco as well. And the last bit of video footage is actually from on the way out, but what it does is it shows the club rib, shows the team as they went out to do it. You can see the two guys who provided surface cover for us there, Chris and Simon up front, and yeah, it's fantastic. Great to be part of a club where people do this kind of stuff. So hope you've enjoyed another one of my videos. As always, give us a like, give us a comment, subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thank you.